Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
After spending 3 years taking care of my grandmother who had Alzheimer's, I decided to go back to school and become a medical assistant. It wasn't easy juggling classes while being a caregiver, but my grandmother had always encouraged me to pursue my dreams, even in her less lucid moments. After she passed away last year, I threw myself into my studies, determined to make her proud. I also deal with chronic pain and anxiety due to a car accident from 5 years ago. I'm on prescribed medication for both conditions, all completely legal and necessary for me to function normally. I've never hidden this fact. It's just part of who I am. So when I finally got hired at this private practice, I was over the moon. The pay was great, the hours were perfect, and it seemed like everything was falling into place. Then came the pre-employment drug screening requirement. I went straight to one of the practice owners, a woman who had interviewed me, to be upfront about my situation. I explained to her about the drug screening and told her about my prescribed medications that would show up in the test. I offered to provide all necessary documentation from my doctors. She responded positively, telling me that she appreciated my responsibility in coming forward. She simply asked me to bring in my doctor's notes to keep on file. I felt relieved after our conversation, but that feeling didn't last long. 2 hours later, I was called back into her office. The moment I walked in, I could tell something was off. She casually told me that her husband, the other owner, had taken it upon himself to look into my medical records and had confirmed my prescriptions. I was shocked. I asked her to clarify if she was really saying that he had accessed my medical records without my consent. She dismissed my concerns, explaining that since he was a doctor at the practice, it was fine. She said he was just verifying my story. I told her that this wasn't allowed and that it was a violation of medical privacy laws. She brushed it off, saying they needed to verify the information and suggested that I should understand their position. She even tried to justify it by saying it was more efficient than waiting for the documentation. I sat there, stunned. I needed this job desperately. My student loans weren't going to pay themselves, and good positions in my area were hard to come by. But this was so wrong on so many levels. That evening, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how casually they had violated my privacy. What else would they do if I let this slide? Would they access my records again? Would they share my medical information with others? The next morning, I made some calls to the state medical board and spoke with a privacy officer. They confirmed what I already knew. This was a serious violation. They instructed me to file a formal complaint and assured me they would investigate. I submitted the complaint with trembling hands. By the afternoon, I had a meeting scheduled with the board's investigators. They explained that every time a medical record is accessed electronically, it leaves a digital footprint, who accessed it, when, and from where. There would be proof. The investigation moved quickly. Within a week, both owners were called in for questioning. They tried to claim it was a misunderstanding, but the evidence was clear in the system logs. The husband's medical license was suspended pending a full investigation, and the practice was fined heavily. I was offered a position at another clinic by one of the board members who had connections in the medical community. My new colleagues respected professional boundaries, and the work environment was so much healthier. Sometimes standing up for yourself means taking a risk, but in this case, it led me to where I was actually meant to be. The last I heard, the original practice was being investigated for other privacy violations. Apparently, I wasn't the first person whose records they had accessed inappropriately. The husband's medical license was eventually revoked, and they had to sell the practice. I still have all my prescriptions, I still deal with my chronic pain and anxiety, but now I work somewhere that respects privacy and professional ethics. I'm a 32-year-old mother of a beautiful 3-year-old boy. My husband and I worked hard to get where we are, both successful in our careers, a nice home in the suburbs, and most importantly, our precious little one who came after years of trying. My sister-in-law, my husband's sister, had always been difficult. While she put on a sweet face for the family, I'd seen her true colors more times than I could count. She makes snide remarks about other people's success, spread rumors, and somehow always managed to make herself the victim. The fact that she and her husband had been trying for a baby unsuccessfully for the past 5 years had made her even more bitter, especially towards me. I remember that day clearly. I woke up with severe abdominal pain, the kind that makes you know something's seriously wrong. My husband insisted on taking me to the emergency room, but we had a problem. Our regular babysitter was out of town, and my parents lived 3 hours away. That's when my sister-in-law called, as if by some cruel cosmic joke. She had heard from my husband's mother that I wasn't feeling well. She immediately offered to watch her nephew, insisting we shouldn't worry about anything except getting me checked out. I didn't want to accept. Every fiber of my being was screaming not to, but between the increasing pain and my husband's worried face, I felt trapped. I hesitantly asked if she was sure, mentioning that he could be a handful. She brushed off my concerns, saying what kind of aunt would she be if she didn't help in an emergency. Before leaving, I was extremely clear with her. I explained that I'd left his lunch in the fridge and carefully told her about his allergies to peanuts, tree nuts, and shellfish. I instructed her not to give him anything else and showed her where his EpiPen was in the drawer, asking her to please stick to the food I'd prepared. She dismissed my worries, telling me to stop being so anxious and bragging that she'd taken care of kids before. She cooed at my son, assuring me they'd have a great time together. 4 hours later, we returned home. The house was quiet. Too quiet. My son wasn't in the living room where we'd left him playing. Then we heard it. A weak wheezing sound from the kitchen. I rushed in and found my baby boy on the floor, his face swollen, struggling to breathe. Next to him was a half-eaten peanut butter sandwich. My husband immediately grabbed him and ran to the car while I searched for my sister-in-law. That's when I heard it, giggling coming from upstairs. I ran up to our bedroom and flung open the door. There she was, in my bed, with some man I'd never seen before, both scrambling to cover themselves. When I confronted her about my son's anaphylactic reaction, she just rolled her eyes and dismissed my concern. She casually explained that she'd given him a sandwich to keep him quiet because he was being annoying and crying for me. I've never felt rage like that moment. I couldn't even speak. I just ran to the car where my husband was already pulling out of the driveway. We made it to the hospital just in time. The doctor said another few minutes, and I can't even finish that thought. While our son was being treated, I called her husband. He arrived at the hospital within minutes, devastated by both his wife's betrayal and what she'd done to our son. The aftermath was swift and severe. Her husband filed for divorce the next day. When the story got out, how she'd endangered a child to have an affair, she lost her job as an elementary school administrative assistant. Her parents, who had always enabled her behavior, finally saw her for what she was and cut all ties. We pressed charges for child endangerment and neglect. She tried to play the victim, claiming she didn't know about the allergy despite the multiple warnings, but we had security cameras in our kitchen that proved otherwise. She was filmed picking up the EpiPen, reading it, and putting it back before making that sandwich. She got 18 months in prison for reckless endangerment of a child. When she gets out, she'll have a felony record that will follow her forever. Last I heard, she's been writing letters to family members begging for money and a place to stay, but no one's responding. The man she was with turned out to be married too. His wife took him for everything in their divorce. Karma really does come full circle sometimes. My son is doing great now, though we're even more careful about his care. My husband and I learned a hard lesson about trusting the wrong people, even if they're family. I met my husband 5 years ago at a local coffee shop where I was working as a barista. He was this charming regular who'd come in every morning for his cappuccino, and after months of shy looks and small talk, we finally went on our first date. Everything was perfect, except for one tiny detail I'd soon discover: his family's obsession with this specific take-and-bake pizza place. Now, I consider myself an adventurous eater. I'm the type who'll try anything once, from exotic street food to weird fusion cuisine. I actually make it a point to try at least one new item every time I go grocery shopping. But this pizza place, there's something about their food that just tastes wrong. Everything has this bitter, almost sour undertone that makes my taste buds revolt. The first time I tried it was at my then boyfriend's family dinner. I didn't want to make a fuss, so I ate it quietly while fighting my gag reflex. But as these family gatherings became more frequent, I realized this wasn't just a one-time thing. It was their go-to for every single event. During one Christmas dinner, my mother-in-law excitedly announced they were getting their usual pizza. When I gently suggested trying something different, she dismissed my idea, insisting it was tradition and that everyone loved it. I tried. I really did. I sampled their margarita, their supreme, their white sauce options, everything. But that bitter taste was always there, haunting me. So I started bringing my own food to these gatherings. Just simple takeout from places I enjoyed. That's when the real drama started. My mother-in-law confronted me about not eating the pizza she ordered. When I explained that I'd brought my own food, she got upset, arguing that ordering from this place was their family tradition. I tried to be polite, telling her I appreciated the offer but preferred my own meal. That's when my father-in-law jumped in, accusing me of being difficult on purpose and demanding I try it again. This went on for years. Every gathering became a battleground of passive-aggressive comments and hurt feelings. My husband always stood by me, bless him, but even his support couldn't prevent the tension that filled every family dinner. Then came this year's Halloween party. My husband and I had planned to host, and we were excited about setting up a pasta bar. We'd already bought all the ingredients: fresh pasta, different sauces, toppings, the works. But when my mother-in-law found out, you'd think we'd suggested serving mud pies. She was horrified at the mention of pasta, reminding us forcefully that pizza was their family tradition. When I tried to explain that we wanted to try something different, she refused to listen. She even offered to order anything I wanted from their menu. I had to explain yet again that I really didn't like anything from there because it tasted bitter to me. She dismissed my explanation as ridiculous, while my father-in-law accused me of being picky and trying to change their traditions. To avoid a full-blown family crisis, we let them order their precious pizza. I quietly went to get my own dinner from a different place, which sent my mother-in-law into an absolute frenzy. She started yelling about how I was disrespecting their family tradition and accused me of doing it on purpose to upset her. When I calmly defended myself, explaining again that I simply didn't like the taste, she snapped back with a comment about not liking my attitude. That's when my husband finally had enough. He confronted his parents, explaining that we'd been nice about this for years. He pointed out that I had different taste preferences, which was perfectly okay, and reminded them that I'd been polite by bringing my own food and never complaining about others eating the pizza. He told them they were the ones making it a huge issue and gave them an ultimatum: either accept my different preferences or we'd start hosting all future family gatherings at our house with whatever food we chose to serve. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother-in-law's face went through about 50 shades of red before she finally sat down without another word. My father-in-law just stared at his plate. Since then, they've been quieter about the whole pizza situation. They still order from their favorite place, but they stopped trying to force me to eat it. We're hosting Christmas this year, with a full holiday feast, not a pizza in sight. I've been in the financial analysis industry for over 12 years now. Started right after getting my master's in business analytics, and I've worked my way up from junior analyst to senior consultant. My specialty? Breaking down complex financial data and turning it into actionable insights for our biggest clients. It's detail-oriented work that requires patience and precision. One wrong decimal point could mean millions in miscalculations. For 10 of those years, I worked under different supervisors who understood our field. They knew that accuracy was paramount. Our clients trusted us with their financial futures, and that trust was built on our reputation for thoroughness. Then came the new department head. Fresh from some hotshot tech startup, he waltzed into our office like he was going to revolutionize everything. First day, he gathered us all in the conference room. He started by announcing that things were going to change, dramatically declaring that we were living in a fast-paced world and needed to adapt or die. When I pointed out that our client specifically chose us for our accuracy and attention to detail, he just waved it off. He insisted that time was money and claimed we could maintain quality while increasing speed. He kept assuring us that he'd done this before. The narrator voice in my head was screaming, "No, you haven't." But I kept quiet and watched as he implemented his innovative changes. First came the impossible deadlines, then the micromanaging. But the real kicker was his new time tracking and output system. He announced his new rule: every task should take no more than 30 minutes. Claiming anything longer meant we weren't being efficient enough. When one of my senior colleagues protested that this was impossible for comprehensive financial analysis, he just dismissed the concern, insisting nothing was impossible and we just needed to streamline our processes. I tried reasoning with him in private. I explained that these time constraints weren't realistic, pointing out that the Anderson account alone required at least 2 hours of careful review. His response was dismissive. He called it old-school thinking and implied I might not be a good fit for the company if I couldn't adapt to modern business practices. That's when I decided to give him exactly what he wanted. Speed, he gets speed. The next week I blazed through everything. 15-minute financial reviews? Done. 30-minute market analysis? Finished. Complex investment strategies? Slapped together in record time. I was hitting every single one of his precious time targets. Of course, the mistakes started piling up. A misplaced zero here, a wrong percentage there. But whenever anyone questioned the quality, he'd jump in defending his system, using me as an example of the efficiency he was trying to achieve. Then came the Johnson account presentation. Our biggest client, worth millions in annual revenue. I prepared it in exactly 28 minutes as per the new guidelines. During the client meeting, everything fell apart. The client representative noticed the projections showing their company losing 80% of value in Q3. When the department head tried to look at it, the client representative pointed out all the typos in the risk assessment section, asking if this was some kind of joke. The department head tried to defend our standards, but the client wasn't having it. They threatened to call his boss right away. The next day, I was summoned to a meeting with the new department head and the regional director. The regional director demanded an explanation for how we nearly lost our biggest client. When the department head tried to blame it on attention to detail issues, I calmly explained that I was simply following his time guidelines. Each task under 30 minutes, no exceptions. I pointed out that quality wasn't a metric in the new system, only speed, and showed them my detailed time logs, proving I complied with every requirement. The regional director was shocked to learn this system had been implemented without her approval. When the department head tried to defend his streamlining efforts, she shut him down hard. She told him that streamlining doesn't mean sacrificing the very thing our clients pay us for, and ordered him to pack up his office, saying they'd discuss his transition tomorrow. The department head left that day and never came back. The regional director appointed one of our experienced senior analysts as the new department head. The time tracking system was immediately scrapped. In our next team meeting, the new senior department head brought us back to our roots, emphasizing that we should focus on what we do best, providing thorough, accurate financial analysis. She made it clear we should take whatever time needed to do things right. I later found out that the previous startup success our former department head bragged about had actually ended in the company facing multiple lawsuits for mismanagement. He conveniently left that part out of his resume. These days we're back to our normal pace. Quality over speed, just as it should be. Sometimes the old ways are the old ways for a reason. And as for the regional director, she made sure to add a new section to our company policy manual. Quality assurance standards cannot be overridden without executive approval. Funny how trying to fix something that wasn't broken ended up breaking everything instead. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.